welcome to the Fits and Healthy podcast. I am your host, Dr. Lauren Fitzgerald, and today I have a celebrity guest on the Fits and Healthy podcast. This guy I had actually never heard of because his celebrity status started out in Australia, but he's actually a celebrity over here in the United States as well. But it started out with me watching a documentary in which I have told tons of people in my history of being in the health and wellness niche to watch because there's so much bad info out there. So I was originally introduced to this gentleman from The Magic Pill, which is a documentary on Netflix. Now, in my research of him, I realized that Mr. Pete Evans is all over the place. And my massage therapist was actually the one who asked me, have you watched The Paleo Way? And I'm like, ooh, no, that sounds good. I'm going to go watch it. And of course, I see that you're behind The Paleo Way on Netflix as well. And so that got me even more curious to see what else do you have your hands on? And you literally are all over the place. I can't believe how many books you've written, and your mindset as far as the approach to making big changes in the areas that need to be changed are literally in line with mine. So Pete Evans, celebrity chef, I want to welcome you to the show. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. Thank you, Lauren, for having me and inviting me on. And hello to everybody that's listening or watching.
Exactly. So let's start out. I'm curious because I know that you have been in the food world. And did you notice I'm wearing my Food is Medicine t-shirt for you?
I love it. Thank you so much. And I've got very similar shirts that say "Food is Medicine" too.
I actually was
beautiful.
I was going to order it from you, but it couldn't get here in time for the interview. And so I went on Amazon and ordered another one. But yes, no, you're wearing Food is Medicine t-shirt in one of the episodes of The Paleo Way. And I'm like, that's brilliant. That's such a great way to truly start getting people to open their mind to the fact that food is actual medicine. So,
well, it's definitely one of the forms of medicine that we use. That's for sure.
Absolutely. So can I just ask what got you into the place that you're in right now where you're preaching that food is medicine?
I guess I am 46 years of age, and it has been an ongoing journey of discovery and remembering and searching and studying.
Yes.
And asking the questions. So no pivotal moment as such. Lots of different moments that have accumulated to where we are now. And I've been a chef now for over 30 years. I've cooked over 1 million meals with these two hands. And I've always been interested in health and nutrition and how we think, how we behave, what our belief systems and patterns are, and what it means to be human.
Right.
And I love cooking. It's my job.
Right.
And it's a way that I get to express myself and love myself and nurture my family with beautiful food and create memories.
Right.
And it is
an evolution.
Well, yeah, I think food for me is such a beautiful part of our lives, and that I really am aware and conscious of how important good food is and delicious food is.
Right.
And I guess I've been lucky enough to take this career path and choose being a chef, and coinciding that with my passion for health and nutrition and being human, to be able to put that all together in some sort of package, as you said, which was The Magic Pill or The Paleo Way.
Right.
Or I even hosted, last night I was working and hosting a TV series here that I do in Australia. It's a reality cooking series, and I'm a judge. I don't actually cook on it. But we have these contestants, these home cooks that come along on this journey for anywhere from 3 to 5 months of filming. And myself and other chefs, we sort of mentor them and try to pass on our experience, or we do pass on our experience for them to become better cooks.
Right.
And I wouldn't say that's in the health and wellness space. There definitely are aspects to it that you could say it is, but I love that job too. So yeah, I have fingers in lots of different pies, as they say, and some are food, some is health and nutrition, some are joined,
right.
and I I actually love doing what you're doing, Lauren, is asking people questions. And it's actually probably my favorite job.
I totally agree. Being a podcaster, which you have your own podcast too, which I've been listening to, it gives you a great excuse to talk to really brilliant people, right?
Yeah, and it's the one job that I don't get paid for that I love the most.
I totally agree. Totally agree. So my mom she loves to cook, and I did not catch on to that. I think I was the firstborn, I was raised, and I was like, I just want to go to medical school and become a doctor and blah blah blah. And cooking is for women that want to stay home and do that. You know, that numbskull mindset, right? So it wasn't until I was pretty much in my 30s before I realized, like, if I want to take control of my own health, I have to start to cook and I have to learn how to cook. And and I love, like, looking at all of the books you have. You have published over 20 books, is that correct?
Yeah, about 20, and I think we've got another 10 coming in the next 3 years, which is exciting. Not only just here in Australia, that's my largest, I guess, audience,
right?
Because the books are readily available, they get published in Australia. But I've also worked with Dr. McCullough and done a couple of books with him over the last couple of years. I'm working with a beautiful man out of Chicago, actually, out of Maine, actually, I should say, Dr. Sulak.
Okay.
We're working together on a cannabis cookbook at the moment, and healing book, which is brilliant. I can't wait to share that with you.
Have you watched the documentary "Weed the People" on Netflix?
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yes, for sure. I'm a fan too. You and I align a lot in our thinking process, for sure.
We're actually in post-production now of a cannabis documentary as a follow-up for The Magic Pill on Netflix. Really? So I've spent the last year filming that. And once that goes to bed, or actually, I shouldn't say go to bed, but when I put it to bed and it goes out there into the world,
right.
We're in pre-production for the next documentary, which will be our third one, which will be on awakened consciousness and different ways of, I guess, different modalities for being, what's the best way to say this? Opening our awareness to what is possible. I agree. Not only for individual health and for humans, but also for humanity. So that's something that I'm really passionate about sharing. And we've started a few interviews for that so far. We've interviewed Dr. Kelly Brogan, right? Dr. Dan Engel out of Colorado, also Dr. Maya Shatreat Clean out of New York. Powerful people that have, and also Wim Hof for this for the third film as well. So very cool. And we've got some great people lined up for this as well. You know, and I'll be going on the journey of discovery myself as I tend to do.
Absolutely. That's the fun part of it. I actually, the last couple of interviews I've done, I interviewed Nina Teicholz and Dr. Cate Shanahan, who obviously, you know, were on the Magic Pill. But I literally, when I'm watching your Paleo Way, I will write down names because you're introducing me to people, like some of them I already knew and I'm familiar with them, but a lot of people that I'm not. And I love it because you are literally using every single platform to reach every single ear that is willing to listen to your message. And your message is, it's still so against the grain, which I love. Have you looked at your Wikipedia site lately by any chance?
I looked at it about 4 years ago, and there was a lot of errors on there, and I decided that
you shouldn't look.
Well, the thing is about those types of platforms or information. What would I say? People believe what they read, and those things are real, and I can 1000% tell you that it's far from the truth. Just like most mainstream news is far from the truth, and certain things that are pushed out through industry bodies are far from the truth. So, no, I haven't looked at my Wikipedia page for quite some time. And I would say to anybody that does look at it that read between the lines.
It's not bad, actually. After I finished studying your website, which PeteEvans.com, there are so many great resources that even if a person doesn't want to purchase any of the products, that you have so many books and so many things to offer to purchase. But if people don't, there's so much free content that you give the people. But I wanted a little bit deeper story, like, a little bit more of your background, because it's kind of brief. So I went on Wikipedia, and at the very bottom, it talks about, people that are not happy with you. And I loved, it was great because all of the things that you have caused controversy are exactly like in line with what we see eye to eye on very many things. I'll just say that.
Yeah, for sure. And it's interesting. As soon as you, I guess, as you mentioned before, go against the grain, and I don't think I go against the grain at all. It's common sense, and there's certain things that definitely need to be talked about or questioned.
Right.
And I'm not here to cause friction or fights or conflict or anything like that. Happy to stand in my truth if as I do, but there's definitely questions that need to be asked, and I'm happy to ask them and actually have a conversation about it and let people work it out for themselves, instead of just being spoon-fed or force-fed, as we often are in this world.
Yes, we are.
And if we don't want to eat that or drink that Kool-Aid, then it frightens a lot of people.
It does.
That there may be a different way to live your life that doesn't fit in with the narrative.
Right. Correct.
The mainstream narrative, I should say.
Right. Well, that kind of coincides with the fact you were a vegan for 4 years, correct?
Yeah, in my late teens, actually, early 20s.
Wow.
For about 3 or 4 years. Yeah, I attended a Anthony Robbins 3-day workshop when I was 19 and walked the coals.
Yep.
Shouted out
at
the universe, set my short-term, long-term, medium-term goals, understood what fear was, and, beautiful, wonderful experience.
Absolutely.
And in that, he was promoting a vegetarian or fit for life diet at the time. One thing led to another, and I started meditating, and then the meditation practices I was doing recommended a vegetarian diet, which was exactly what Anthony Robbins was promoting at the time. And I thought, let's have a look at this.
Yeah, of course.
I'm curious.
And you trust him.
I tried it. I did it for 3 or 4 years. I was a vegan, and it nearly killed me. I won't say killed me, but it definitely hurt my health, damaged my health, and it didn't work for me, put it that way. And I did the right supplementation and everything that's you're meant to do.
Recommended, correct?
Yeah, and it got to the point where I was like, wow, do I hold on to this belief that's actually causing me harm?
Yeah.
Or do I change?
Right.
And I thought, I actually want to feel good, but how do we hold on to those same principles? How do we, from being a vegetarian / vegan for those years, I cared about the environment, as I still do. I cared about the treatment of animals, as I still do, or the better treatment of animals. I cared about where my food came from. Is it being sprayed with this, or grown organically, or holistically, or biodynamically, or whatever it may be. So the principles stayed the same. It's just one thing changed, and that was just the consumption of well-raised meat.
Right.
So it's interesting, and I see this huge vegetarian vegan movement at the moment, and I'm really happy for it because there's something about that triggers or is a catalyst for people to care about the planet, care about better treatment for animals and their own personal health. And if anybody is on this journey and they are vegetarian or vegan or thinking about doing it, I encourage people to work out what is best for them.
Right.
And as I say to any vegetarian or vegan that comes to me for advice, I say, well, do what you're doing if it's benefiting you.
Right.
However, if at some point it no longer serves you, then you may wish to consider looking at, say, a paleo, keto, or carnivore approach where you start to source ethically raised or caught animals
Right.
and put some of them into your diet.
Right.
You can still have the same principles for, as I said, better treatment of the animals.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Vote with your dollars and support the farmers or fisher people that are doing the right thing. And you can still be a very ethically and moral, environmentally sound person.
Absolutely.
In fact, the more that you actually dig down the rabbit hole of holistically farmed animals,
Yep.
you will realize that some of the truths or the beliefs that you held onto so tightly about the environment and that cows are bad and all that bullshit is actually, again, propaganda and not exactly 100% true.
Absolutely. Your most recent podcast interview, you were interviewing a lady that's out of Boston.
Diane Rogers.
Yes, that interview was so great. I definitely recommend everyone listening to that episode and more of your episodes of your podcast. Your podcast is amazing.
Thank you.
But I love the fact that she does talk about the propaganda that is behind the vegan movement. And I'm not here to start. I've got plenty of friends that are vegans, but I definitely, I think that being open-minded to listening to your body, and if your body isn't getting what it needs, being open-minded to maybe this is not the way that your body was supposed to be fed.
Yeah, so for me, I'm excited. It's like, wow, there's this whole body of people that are starting to really think about where their food comes from.
Absolutely.
So, as I've said to many people, it's like, don't hate on that because that's a good thing.
It is.
It
is.
And it's one step closer to the real truth, I believe.
Absolutely.
Is long-term sustainable health, not only for us, but for the planet.
Yes.
And if this is the catalyst to get them across the line to the next stage of their evolution or their understanding, then bring it,
Exactly.
Because I think it's actually probably easier for a vegetarian, vegan / to come onto a paleo or ancestral diet,
right,
which we know has so many great pillars for health for the planet and for us, than somebody that's on the standard American or standard Australian diet that will never change how they eat.
Yep.
So I would say go the vegetarians, go the vegans, because you're one step closer to really helping the planet.
True.
Yeah.
Have you seen The Lion King?
Yourselves.
Have you seen The Lion
Beg your
King?
pardon?
The Lion King? Have you
No,
seen
I haven't yet. We're in Australia. We're a little bit behind.
Okay. I'm not judging you. The newest version came out this week in the United States, and that was one of my favorite Disney flicks back in the day when the original came out. And they stuck to the story pretty well. But I love it because the circle of life. I mean, it is true that all of the people that eat vegetables and are vegans, if the soil doesn't have all of the stuff from dead animals go into it for the nutrients, you're not going to have your vegetables. And it's the circle of life. It's the way we were created to live in harmony. And but I definitely don't think that the conventionally raised animals, that was anywhere part of the design of this planet.
Well, I'm actually writing a book with a very dear friend of mine. She was actually one of my first ever apprentices, and we're going back about 25 years ago or so.
Nice.
Apprentice chefs. And she's become a dear family friend of ours. And she has a young boy that's on the spectrum.
Okay.
And she's a beautiful artist and a beautiful soul. And I told a story years and years ago called The Bunny Story when I used to do stand-up talks and events. And the bunny story is about how I have two children, and at the time they were about 5 and 6 years old, or maybe even younger, 4 and 5. And in Australia, we have this strange phenomenon where children go to birthday parties, and as they're leaving the party, the parents give them a white paper bag or brown paper bag of candy, as you would call it.
Oh, okay.
We call it lollies in Australia.
Okay.
It's like mandatory that parents have to give these kids
a goodie
sugar.
Bag. Yeah, yep.
A goodie bag.
Yeah.
So my kids hop in the car and they're so young and they're so happy they got the goodie bags. And the buddy story goes like this. So they're like, Dad, can we eat the lollies? And I said, well, or the candy. I said, well, let me ask you a question.
Uh-oh.
I said, if you both had a bunny each and you knew and you loved this bunny, like it was your baby.
Right.
It was cute, it was furry, twitched its nose, and you were in charge of it. You were responsible for its life. If you knew that for that bunny to thrive, it needed to eat a species-specific diet, what does that mean, Dad? It means food that the bunnies have evolved to eat.
Right.
So it goes out, it would eat the vegetables, it would eat the grass or whatever bunnies eat. It would drink water.
Right.
What would you feed it and what would you give it? Oh, we give it what it was meant to eat, Dad. We give it vegetables, we give it the bowl of water. I said, would you ever put Coca-Cola into its water bowl, or would you ever, give it lollies? And they're like, no, why would we give it lollies? I said, well, if you gave it lollies, well, it might not live as long. It might get pain. It might get sick. It might get overweight.
Right.
Might not be able to jump around as much. If you put the Coke in the the soda into its water bowl, its teeth might fall out. They might rot. Whatever.
You're brilliant.
Would you ever feed your bunny that?
No, Dad.
No. I said, but what if your mate down the road or your best friend down the road had a bunny and it was feeding it that? Would you do the same thing?
And you can see them thinking.
I said, even if there was a small chance that you fed it the same thing, but it wouldn't live as long. So instead of living however many years, it lived half as long, or it got the disease. Would you ever feed it? They're like, no. I said, you're my bunnies.
I love it. That is.
I said, you're my bunnies. I have a responsibility while you're of a young age to feed you the foods that will let you thrive, And I know there's other parents around here that feed their children, their own bunnies, something different. They come home from work and they've got Coke in the fridge, or they go to McDonald's, or they do this. I said, as your parent, you're my bunnies, and I will do everything I can to give you the food that will support you so that you live as long as possible, so you don't get sick, so you can do the activities that you love. I said, when you leave home, you can do whatever you like. Right. But I said, here's something for you. I said, if the goal here, or the kicker is when you can actually think about yourself as your own bunny. I said, that's the goal.
And you have every single parent being like, oh my gosh, that's brilliant right now.
And they go out to, so they didn't eat the lollies, but they go out to parties and things. And it's now, because they're 13 and 14, and over the last 6 or 7 years since that first buddy story, I just empower them to make their own decisions. It's not like, no, you can't eat that when you go out there.
Right.
And if they go to a friend's house and they had pizza or whatever it is, I go, how was that? Did it taste good? How did you feel afterwards?
Exactly.
Oh, it's you got to let your children, and they don't have any disease as such, so they're not celiac or anything like that. Right. So it's about empowering them to make the choices so that they understand what it means for them. And anyway, so I'm writing this book with my dear friend called Maddie.
Right.
For next year. It's a children's book, and
love it.
The story is based off the bunny book, but we've actually changed it to be a species-specific book using Australian native animals. So and she's doing ceramic work to illustrate it. She's an amazing artist. And because when I wanted to create this children's book, I noticed there's a lot of children's health books out there, and it's nearly like pushing the vegetarian movement, that healthy food has to be salads and vegetables and this and that. Yes. And no one ever talks about eating meat.
No.
So I was like, how do I present this in a way for children to be able to read it, and also plant the seeds for the parents to understand this, using our Indigenous animals to tell the story of a species-specific diet? And my dear friend Maddie and we've worked together to create this wonderful children's story about kangaroos eat this, platypus eat this, koalas eat this. But did you know that emus eat this and whatever? And there's some animals that eat other animals. There's other ones that eat plants, and the cycle of life or the circle of life.
Exactly.
You know, there's nothing unnatural about eating meat if that's what we're designed to do.
Absolutely.
You know, but in this very PC world at the moment, like seriously, like some of the stuff, like I follow Dr. Sean Baker, who's pushing the carnivore approach.
Yep.
And he's an interesting fellow to watch because he's actually fighting a fight here.
Yeah.
And we need people like that in those positions, I believe.
I agree.
But he shares with us what now is deemed inappropriate. Like he'll put a photo of a lion eating its prey or its kill, and now it's being deemed as too politically not correct, that it violates standards to show what was once considered so normal and so natural.
Right. Wow.
So
it's interesting times.
I guess I'm looking at different ways to keep these messages coming in, as you said, different mediums for different age groups in a way that's not confronting.
Yes.
Because I'm not Dr. Sean Baker, for instance. I'm not here to shock and awe people, but more to plant the seeds of understanding and common sense.
Right.
That's what I like to do.
Right. And start teaching them at a young age. This book that you're writing right now, this is not the first book that is aimed for young people, though. You have a couple more that I saw on your website, like the one that's titled Lunchbox. I know that's one thing that people always ask me, like, because I constantly am trying to teach people to look at ingredients and eat real whole foods and what to look for. And when they realize that all of the food that they thought they were buying that's healthy for their kid is still laced full of crap. And so that the big question of when someone finally takes responsibility of, okay, what I feed me and my family is the most important thing, then they're like, where do I go now? Right? So
what do we do?
Yeah, exactly. So
solution-based solution. My intention is to offer solutions that are practical.
Yes.
We have a 10-week program that's free online called the Paleo Way.
Yes.
And it has 350 recipes. It's got hours upon hours upon hours of videos and blogs from dear friends and experts. And it's completely free. We've had 100,000 people do this program over the last few years. And it's a wonderful resource. Like, it's a wonderful gift, I believe, to people that are looking for answers.
Right.
And there's no strings, there's no bells. I collect email addresses, but I've never used that information. I haven't even sent a newsletter out. It's just it's a platform for people to send their parents or their work colleagues or their friends and say, hey, if you want to go on this journey, here's a great resource. It's free. Lots of recipes. Go at it as you like, and anyone can start today or tomorrow or anything. It's not like you have to join every 3 months or something, and off you go. Right. And that's sort of my gift and my co-founder's gift back to people, because people obviously have to buy a book because the money goes to the publisher. I get a royalty. So there's ways. It definitely, there's a business model to what we do, like anything. But we also love to give back. Like, the Magic Pill is self-funded. It's the Paleo Way was self-funded.
Yes.
There's no return there for me apart from some beautiful emails that I get every day or messages of people saying, I'm off my medication in some instances, or my life is so different now, or my children are communicating to us like we've never had before. So, I love it. It's this balancing act of information that we can share in so many different modalities.
I use the little girl that's autistic on the magic pill as an example on a regular basis, because out of all of the different people that you focused on in the magic pill, that was the one that I've rewatched that documentary many, many times, and it still
Oh.
brings me to tears every single time, because I mean, it just, when autism is truly something that changes a family's lives forever,
Mm-hmm.
and to have something like that to give them some sort of hope, it's the biggest blessing that you could ever give someone.
Well, it's really interesting when you say that, because what I've found over the years that we've been promoting this and working in this space, and I work with a beautiful organisation in Australia called the Mind Foundation, MINDD, and sorry, I'm drinking a hemp kombucha, and
It's all good.
it's like I'm having a burp at the moment.
I've done that before. Don't feel bad.
So check out the Mind Foundation, and they bring experts, doctors and researchers from all over the world every year for a symposium in Australia.
Right.
And what is beautiful about this is not only does, say, somebody like Abigail feel the benefits of, and it can be minor or it can be major, every person is different, and diet isn't the be all and end all.
No.
It's one of our tools that we use.
Absolutely.
And it's definitely one of the tools that parents of children on the spectrum may want to consider as one of their tools.
Absolutely.
But what I love the most is not only the individual person, say the children on the spectrum, that wake up to some degree or find different engagement skills with their parents or their surrounding or with their community or at school, or being able to go to school, for instance.
Right.
But sometimes the most heartwarming stories are from the parents, just saying, I did this for my child. I was it was my last resort, but the flow-on effect is I no longer have anxiety. I no longer have depression. I no longer wake up feeling like I can't get through the day and there's no light. I now have a life, and not only is my child improving,
right,
but now I see that there's light at the end of the tunnel for myself. And that to me is wow.
Oh yeah, no, that's when you have the confirmation from the universe that you are doing what you are supposed to be doing.
Well, it's not only that, it's nearly like one of the most common things I hear, even though it's so challenging for these parents, is that without going through those challenges, they would never have come to the realizations that they're finding out about themselves through this. So there's something in this journey that we're all on, that sometimes, however dark it may seem or how challenging it may seem, that there's something in store as well for people that go into this and really take this on. I was just away at the snow last week for a day skiing with my kids, and I bumped into a friend, and they've got a child on the spectrum, and they haven't taken any of this information on board, even though it's been presented to them for the last decade or so. And my heart goes out to them, because at this moment that child isn't doing very well, unfortunately, and the parents aren't doing very well. And you sort of sometimes need to let go of expectation, or that, you know what it's like, even for me, some of my closest family members will not embrace any of this, possibly because it's coming from me.
Yeah, usually that's the case, unfortunately.
And you have to just surrender, let go, trust, and understand that every single person is on their own personal journey. And just because you're doing this doesn't mean that everybody should be doing this, even though you want people to do this. And there comes a point, and I'm sure you've had it, Lauren, where you've just gone, you know what, I can't change that for that person, even though I love them dearly.
Yes.
And I can see what would happen if that happened for them, but I have to let go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And
I actually I have an uncle that my cousin he is I believe now he's 20 but he's on the spectrum, and when I first started learning about food and how it can heal you, that was the first time that I ever started realizing, like, oh, maybe my cousin might have a chance. And I had a really difficult conversation with my uncle. It was very loving, but there was definitely the feeling of um, he wanted me to understand, I don't know what it's like because I'm not living in his shoes, and it's just much easier said than done. And while it's totally true, I have also seen, I have this one lady that I've been coaching, and her son is a 18, probably 19 now, year old teenager on the spectrum. He has actually, I believe he has Asperger's as well. And she just started working on her. And so she got off of 6 different asthma and allergy medicines, and she just lived as an example. And because he was watching her, he started doing what she was doing. And she told me that he literally, the changes that she has seen in him, like, she has a relationship with her son in which she never thought she would.
and a relationship with herself too.
Yes, absolutely. And it's just, you just want to get into everyone's head and be like, why are you not trying to change? But everyone has to come to their own terms. I always say some people need to hear sucralose is bad for you one time, and then other people need to hear it like 100 times before they're like, okay, maybe I should read the labels, and okay, ooh, it's in everything I eat, But people like yourself and myself are using all these different platforms to try and reach the masses to hopefully reverse this terrible direction that not just, I mean, the United States, obviously, that's where I live and I see, but I don't know how bad it is in Australia. But if it's...
Well, I spend anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks in the States every year. I do a beautiful little TV show on PBS called Movable Feast,
Yes.
which is another show that I host. And it's an old school cooking show where no one's getting eliminated. It's not a reality show.
Right,
I do that in Australia.
Yeah.
But I get to work with America's top chefs.
Yes.
And we actually go out and find some food, whether it's the shop or the ocean or the farm or wherever these guys and girls get their food from, and we go and cook it for a group of people. I mean, who would have thought this would make a great TV show?
Right.
It's not a battle for survival. It's actually
right.
let's cook some beautiful food. And I have to thank PBS for allowing me to do that, because it's a wonderful adventure for me every time, because I get to see how the food scene is in the States.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, you guys have got some great stuff happening in the States, like amazing stuff. Like, as an outsider, as a foreigner, usually when people think of the States from being an outsider, it's all junk food and this, and I actually had that perception 10 years ago before I started spending time in the States. I was like, whoa, there's actually some bloody awesome stuff going in here that we could actually take a leaf out of your book and learn. There's pockets of it, and there's everything, obviously.
Of course.
And it's amazing to see, and I've come to that realization that there's something for everybody out there. There are people that are changing the world. There are people that, at the moment, they don't really care about the world, and that's okay.
Yep.
That is okay.
Yeah.
Because that person from that might inspire their children to do something.
Right. Right.
Or vice versa. And I guess where I'm going with this is I've let go of expectations.
I think that's wise.
Even the documentaries that I'm making at the moment, my expectation is I have no expectation whether anybody's actually going to see this. It's just an expression of my creativity.
Right.
And that's important for me.
Absolutely.
I'm compelled, I have a desire to create these books or TV shows or documentaries, or I'm doing a talk in Sydney in a couple of weeks' time, and I do the podcast, and it doesn't, I've learned to let go of how many people are going to see this.
Yeah.
Will it do anything?
Right.
Because if I'm doing that, I feel like I'm trying to do it for the wrong reasons.
I agree.
And I have no structure to anything that I do. It's just like, I think I'll make a movie about this. How am I going to do that? I don't know, but I'm sure I'll find out. Maybe if I interview one person that is involved in that space, like cannabis, I'll speak to them and also ask them, who else should I speak to in this space?
Exactly.
And that's how it happens. And all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well, I've got enough here to really sort of build the base of, is there stuff here that I'd like to share? Should I go into a movie, or should I make small little YouTube videos, or should I package this in a different way? And it's like, well, let's work it out as we go along, you know. No deadlines,
I swear,
no timelines.
You're my Australian brother. I have like the same exact way. I'm just a few years behind you.
And people go, what's your marketing plan? What's your strategy? What's your like, I don't know.
That makes me feel so good.
I don't know. Because I don't want any pressure on that.
Right,
you know?
right, absolutely. So let me ask you this, because I started to tell you, my mom loves to cook, and back 3 years ago, I had major knee surgery, and she stayed and took care of me for the 2 months that I was on crutches, and so she literally watches the Food Network and those kind of, like, that's the only kind of TV she watches. So during those 2 months, I watched a lot of those kind of shows, and you know, I do believe that chefs are some of our first like doctors, right? Because you can heal the body with medicine or with food. But so many chefs, the way in which they cook are not healing recipes, if you will. Do you feel the urge that you need to help chefs realize that the power is in their hands? No, because there's not too many of you. I mean, most chefs are, if you just look and judge on the outside, they don't seem to be healthy.
It's a tough job.
Yeah.
And it generally attracts a certain type of person that's, you know, when I started 30 years ago, the industry was filled with drug use, abuse, I should say, plus drug usage, plus alcohol, alcoholism. Like, it was major.
Yeah.
And when I joined the ranks, I mean, if you've read Kitchen Confidential by Anthony Bourdain, it's pretty accurate for that particular point in time.
Wow.
It's very, very, very accurate for that point in time. It attracts the people that have nowhere to go, that don't know what they want to do, that are just looking for a job. And I'm generalizing here for that period of time, 3 decades ago or more. Very militant, very hierarchical, very masculine dominated in a not a very nice way.
Right.
Bullying, intimidation, you name it. It was like being in, I guess, probably like how the medical system was.
Being a female anesthesiologist in the OR. Yes, exactly, just like that.
Yeah. So, and it's a tough journey for mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually.
Right.
So I'm seeing a change. I'm seeing a shift. I'm seeing even some of the chefs that I've worked with in America over the past few years with the Movable Feast show that I do on PBS, which isn't a health show. I cook all paleo recipes, but I don't promote it.
No, right.
But all the chefs that I work with, and they're 3 Michelin star, 2 Michelin star, great chefs. Like, what is this that you're doing, Pete? I'm like, oh, it's just this, you know. I don't make a big deal about it.
Right.
I just go, I just eat meat and veggies. That's what I'm going to cook in this episode.
Right.
You know? If you want any more, you can jump on my website and have a look.
Right.
You know? But I've seen over the years that some of these top chefs that I've worked with in the States have shifted.
Good.
And I've had a few of them over the years actually email and say, I'm not happy with my health at the moment, Pete. I always remember working with you for that day. Give us some advice.
Right.
And I just send them straight to the 10-week program and say, there you go. Or a book to read like Nora Gagaudis' Primal Body, Primal Mind.
Right.
Off you go.
Right.
Same in Australia as well. I've had chefs do it. So there is a shift, and I see it's interesting. In Australia, I've sort of become the poster child for bad media, and the mainstream media love to write
Wikipedia
sensationalized stories about me,
yeah.
which is cool because it creates
awareness
and conversation.
Absolutely.
But I think that a lot of chefs are probably scared to see what's happened to me. And it's interesting. I had a meeting with my book publishers the other day, and they said, "You're the number one selling cookbook author in Australia every year for the last 5 years. You're out of the last 5 years, you're the number one selling lifestyle author for 3 of those 5 years.
That's huge.
You know, on average, you sell this many books to every other chef that's there." And I've said to my chef mates, I said, "Hey, this isn't a bad path to take."
Right?
Because not only are you helping people, you get to live this great life where you wake up with vitality.
Yes.
Plus, there's not a bad business model if you choose to take it as well.
True.
Like, oh no, they're scared of their identity to change into something else.
Of course.
It's an interesting world, and I do see a shift with the chefs.
Right.
There's a few, like Seamus Mullen in New York is a dear friend, and he's got a great story, and he's now working with Gwyneth Paltrow at Goop to educate the men. He's got his own Goop men's podcast with a doctor over there.
Nice.
Matthew Jennings is a great chef out of Boston,
okay.
Who is flying the flag for healthy eating now.
Nice.
Sean Brock from Carolina, I think it is, great Southern chef who's changed his thinking about his place as a chef. And these are, it's starting to happen, and I'm loving it. So I'm just sitting back, I'm getting, I'd say the popcorn, but I'm like,
no, but that, I mean,
let's go.
Do you realize the waves that just you are making in this massive world that's supposed to just, I mean, it's huge. It's huge.
Well, I won't say it's me per se, but it's definitely, I feel like there is a shift happening slowly. And I do want to just bring up this. And
I was going to ask you about your book for sure.
I'm not here to push it. This isn't even available in the States. I think it'll be on Amazon in a year's time, I think. So
I might have to ask a favor and have you mail it to me, because I was going to order it after I finished looking at your website.
Not a problem. But it's called Heal, and I just want to preface this because we're talking about food, and just saying that, as I've said in the podcast so far, that food is a vitally important tool.
Yes, absolutely.
And as you on your shirt, food can be medicine.
Yes.
But I don't throw all my eggs into that basket.
No.
And I'm sure you don't either. And so and most of my messaging over the years has been through food, because that's my vehicle. As a chef, it's like, okay, I can share recipes, which I love doing. Practical solutions for families or individuals to create something that's delicious, that's nourishing, and a form of self-love.
Right, absolutely.
But I created this book, and it's an interesting one because I read so many books out there on self-help and what it means to be human, and there's usually jam-packed with so much information that it can become overwhelming for people, that they might start it and then put it down.
100%.
So I wanted to create something that just planted the seeds. So we're talking about, you can see it on the back there. I don't know if that's backwards for you because of but we talk about nourishment, which is food, beverage, self-love. We talk about reflection, about what it means to be human. We talk about movement as another form of medicine. Yeah. If you don't move your body, then what happens,
Absolutely.
You see people hunched over and bad posture. And we talk about connection to self, to planet, to nature, to others, what that actually means. Right. Also about creation. As I said before, the things that I love to do is a form of self-expression, self-creativity. Right. And I do believe our only purpose is as a human beings, is to express ourselves and to grow, just like every other living being.
Absolutely.
Their only purpose is to grow. and express, whether it's a tree or whatever it may be, a microorganism. And what that means for you is very different than what it means for me.
Correct.
And very different for anyone that's listening. So I never try to compare or emulate or copy anybody else is doing, because it would be absurd to try to be like anybody else, because you're not.
Right.
So it's what is that creative output or expression that brings you joy?
Right.
So many people try to do things that bring other people joy, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if it's not bringing you joy in the first place, then why are you doing it? Are you doing it so people like you?
Yep. I just made a post about this just the other day, because I was living the life that everyone thought, including myself, that would bring all the happiness. Big house, big car, fancy cars, surgeon husband, all of the things. And I wasn't happy. And that was my truth. And I think a lot of people don't realize that if they look deep within themselves, that's where the answer is. Yeah,
as you can eat all the organic food in the world and think you're being healthy, but if you are doing a job or in a relationship that isn't giving you joy or creating joy for yourself, then you can suffer disease.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
On the other hand, you could be living your life of exactly as you like to do it and eat junk food, and you could live to be 100, So I also talk about rest, and we also talk about play, vitally important. And I bring all of these things back to what it means to be human. What does it mean to be human? What has best served us? How did we evolve in a community? How did we play?
Right.
Should we still be playing? Yes, you watch kids. There's no even thought about should they play. It's just they play.
Yeah, it comes natural.
Do they move their bodies? Yes, they do. Are they running marathons? No, they're not.
No.
They're playing. They're jumping. They're crawling. They're sprinting. They're resting. It's all of these things. And then we look at what we do as human beings, and we torture ourselves.
Preach.
We play. Again, we go and do things that are unnatural to our bodies because somebody else is saying that we should be doing, or we join a class that's just
torture,
killing us.
Yeah.
Torture. It's like,
yes.
When would we have ever done that in our existence?
Never.
So, and it's about rest and how do you sleep and how do we go back to emulating exactly our circadian rhythms in this world where we want to watch the Netflix, and I'm guilty of that.
Right. I track my sleep. There's an app called Auto Sleep, and it's connected to my iWatch. And I'm obsessed with this now because it's so interesting, because I don't drink a whole lot of alcohol, but every now and then on the weekends, my significant other and he will take me out and I'll have a nice glass of wine or whatever. And it affects my sleep every single night. And, last night I woke up, I was on my screen before I went to bed, which I know is a no-no. And sure enough, I saw that it affected my sleep. And these little things that we haven't been faced with in the 2.5 million years of being, humans. And now we're being exposed to.
I'm going to interrupt you there. There's someone knocking on my door. Okay. So just hold on for a second. Hello.
How you going?
Good, mate.
Here to fix your staircase?
Fantastic. Jump in. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Fixing our staircase. How are you, buddy?
How you going?
Good, mate.
That's kind of
I'm just doing a little podcast here. You can say hello.
Okay.
Good, thanks. I'll just be 2 seconds. It's just on that landing there. You'll just see it's separated a little bit. Thanks, brother. Okay.
I love it.
Yes.
Okay, so I one last question, and then I will let you go. If someone asks you, what do you consider yourself? Because, there's paleo, there's keto, there's carnivore. I know you're not a carnivore, but and you've written books about both keto and paleo. What do you consider yourself?
A human being.
I love it. As you juggle.
However, in certain psychedelic experiences that I've had, you'd have to question that as well. But at this particular point in time, me talking to you and people listening,
Yes.
I would go by the label of human being.
I love it. I love it.
But I don't think that's the complete truth either. So we'll just leave it at that, and that's what we will explore in the third documentary.
I love it. I love it. So and I will wrap this up because I want to respect your time. But you've been on a ton of different TV shows. We have the documentaries. We've got a ton of books. What do you think are your top 3 most works that you're most proud of?
I love my podcast, to be honest with you. It's I've interviewed maybe 60 or 70 people so far.
Yeah.
From all different fields. So pretty much from the heal type perspective. So it's about food, it's about medicine, it's about what it means to be human.
Right.
It's about these types of things that I love to talk about. So it's not just food based. Right. So I always, people want to know more, I'd encourage them to jump onto the podcast, because over those 60 or 70 interviews, right, there's a wealth of information that can take you down many, many rabbit holes.
Right.
And to find your gold, hopefully. And it's completely free. At the moment, it's called Recipes for Life. I'm actually swapping the name over to be Heal, to be under that brand.
I know. I was searching Heal and I couldn't find it. So.
I think it's offline at the moment because we are swapping it over. Okay. So it might be offline for a couple of weeks. But okay, I'd encourage people to have a listen to that. That's always a fun one for people. The 10-week paleo program is also free. Right. I think it took us years to put that together, and I'm very proud of the work that my friends and I did to make that available for people.
Right.
And if you haven't found what you're looking for between that and that, then create something and send it to me for me to check out. But and of course, the magic pill, I think, is a bite-sized portion of information that anybody can watch over 80 to 90 minutes, that you could sit down with your friends, your work colleagues, your yep, children, yep, your family, and just invest those 90 minutes into sitting there and being open-minded, and I guess you shouldn't believe everything that I say or you say or anybody right, says that's in this space.
Right.
But sit there and just have the intention that you will be open,
yes,
to receiving some information, and then just see how that feels, see how that resonates, and see if it makes any sense. Like, I like to look at things from a common sense point of view. Does that make sense? And generally, if you really want to know if something makes sense, dig down and see who's making money out of that information.
Yes, man.
Because
Nina
generally in this world that we live in currently, currency is a form of energy.
Yes,
and it seems to be one of our major forces of energy in this world, for right or wrong or whatever it is. And I'm not against it or for it. It's right, just, it is an energetic communication between people.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of things that are put out there into mainstream media that is all about protecting certain industries, bottom line, and profitability.
Absolutely.
So question everything, and if you can't find that there's a monetarily link for something, then possibly that makes sense. You might go, oh, well, if no one's making anything out of this, right, then. Well, but other things that you read, you might go,
Yeah, no, when that I have played with the idea of getting sponsors for my podcast, but I keep going back. My gut keeps telling me that to not do that, because I don't want people to question if I'm being paid to say what I'm saying. I want people to trust that I'm telling them what my honest opinion is, and it's not persuaded by a company giving me money. So So, there people like yourself and me who give a ton of free content. The best way that they can support you is by going to your website and purchasing books, supporting all the different, like you've got plenty of products that are good quality, that help them learn to live a healthier and happier life. So obviously we want them to go to PeteEvans.com. Yes.
I don't mind. Again, no expectations. So I have some great cookbooks, but also a lot of that's for free
Right.
if you don't want a hard copy. So completely up to you. But yeah, I don't need anybody to support me. You support yourself. I think that's the key.
I love that. I love that. Okay, so where are you most active on social media?
I'm on Instagram most days. I do my own posts on there, or my wife helps me with the posts.
I was surprised that it was you that day. I'm like, is this you or an assistant?
No, it's always me.
I love it.
So Instagram, Facebook. My Instagram links to Facebook, so that's pretty easy. And that's probably about it, actually. I try to share parts of my life. I'm very open to sharing recipes, photos of my family, adventures, these types of things. So, it's pretty candid.
I love it. So if you could give one piece of advice to the listener that wants to learn to live a more FITz and healthy life, what would that be?
Breathe.
I love it.
Breathe and love yourself.
And love yourself.
Have fun.
Absolutely.
Have fun.
Absolutely.
You get one shot at this body. So
that's what I always say. You
look
don't
after
get a
it
rehearsal.
and watch the world unfold. This is the best show going around.
Amen. Amen.
And you are the main actor.
You are the main actor, and I want to take this moment to just tell you I appreciate you so much for giving your time to this little old podcaster here in Chicago, Illinois. I appreciate you greatly for all of the stuff that you have done and all of the stuff that you will do. And I appreciate all of the listeners listening to this podcast, whether it be the live version on Facebook or the recorded version on YouTube or on the iTunes podcast. I appreciate if you share it. Go to his website, support him in all of his social media, and I appreciate you guys so much. Go and live a more FITz and healthy life today. Bye.